Welcome to the Apex Esports League Lake Edge V8 Supercar Champion for Project Cars 2 on the PS4. So tonight is the start of a 5-round series in the V8 Supercars. Tonight we're heading into Silverstone International, and we look like we have a pretty full grid. So tonight we have 2 sessions. We'll be having a 15-minute practice with weather clear, qualifying for 15 minutes, weather light cloud, then a 15-minute sprint race with weather clear, no mandatory pit. We'll have an 8-minute break and then head into the next session with a 15-minute qualifier, weather clear, then the main race, 30 laps, weather light cloud to heavy cloud with a mandatory pit. So we'll quickly have a look at the track. So Silverstone International, a little bit different to the GP one that you would notice. It is a shorter length, only 3.6 kilometres with 10 turns. Some very fast sections of the track with that Sector 2, the long back. And we're back now. A disconnection occurred. In-game time is 9 o'clock in the morning. So with big conditions, track temperatures will be quite low at the moment. From the sounds of what the drivers are talking about, they're setting the 101s, which you can see Sweatridge already coming in. And then Zero ducking around. I'm not sure if that's Gallant. I think that's not Gallant. We'll make our way through and a few other connection issues going on. Hopefully we won't have any more tech issues going on. We'll make our way through the field so we can identify what cars are actually out there for the drivers. So Sweatridge 3103 with the fastest time in practice so far in green car number 8. And a lot of familiar drivers if you do regularly tune in for our broadcasts. And there's Gallon 350 who just won recently our Ferrari Series Championship. And Kazat 36 Freak, he's joined us a couple of times before, but he's keen to get in and have a good crack. He said he hasn't done much of practice. is a late joiner for today. He's a very quick driver, so we'll be seeing some good things coming from Kazafreak tonight. And also Corby, a seasoned driver with Apex eSports League in the blue number 13. And Tamerzi Blue, also a veteran with us. And he's come through with a very nice time there with a 1:03.881. Bert Wheeler, who's been in a lot of our series. Oh, and there's a big smash going on in the background there. I'm not sure who that is that just went off. It was Sweatridge's car. He's pushing the limits of that car. And Demon FX as well is new to Apex eSports League. So welcome aboard. Glad to have you racing with us. And Bert Wheeler has been around for a couple of series now. And Simo Simsel went to join us for the last round of the Ferrari series last week, but had some connection issues and got disconnected just before the race started. So that was his debut race with us. So hopefully no connection issues for him tonight. We get to see him compete in both the races. And Rooney 9915, also a seasoned racer with Apex eSports League. And Weaven 777, also another seasoned driver. We saw him do some brilliant driving just last week with the Ferrari series wrapping up, as well as the V8 Supercar Challenge. Was some great driving done by Weaven as well. And if you are joining us for the stream, be sure to use the chat controls down below. You can chat to me, let me know who you think is going to take pole position, win the race, make yourself known. I'll give you a shout out. And there's also sound controls, so you can play various sound effects over the stream, so have some fun with it. And we'll see as well that this series is actually sponsored by Lake Edge Holiday Units at Burrell Lake, so be sure to check out their website, and if you're ever in that area, make sure to hit them up and look at staying there for some accommodation. Zero's come through with a 1:01.520, very quick time indeed. Not a lot of difference between the times across the field. And Fritz Iskenya as well, also a regular driver with us. It looked like he did get disconnected and then have to come back in. Mr. D-Train Barbado in the grey number 11. Who else have we missed? So T-Rex, but he's just brought that car into the pits. Whacked Wheel also in the green, he just brought that car into the pits as well. So we are missing a couple drivers tonight. Hopefully they join later in the session. It'll be nice seeing a full grid around Silverstone. Drivers were just talking about some setups as well, as it's custom setups for the cars. Ooh, it's a bit of a dangerous spot flying around there on that pit exit. Only two drivers in the 101s. I think a 101 flat would be hard to try and get. They are really pushing these cars quite hard. So Sweat Ridge, as we saw him just earlier take a big dive bomb into the wall. This car's showing that residual visual damage. The car's a little bit slippery, so those track temperatures are quite low at the moment. And Rennie in the matching car colours to Sweat Ridge. Okay, now T-Rex is back out, so he's also in the grey and red car. Waiting for Waxwell to get out. circuit. So Wactville joined us a few races back for the Ferrari series. In his debut race, copped a big hit at the start when we had the very large smash. We saw him fly through there and end up onto his roof, so hopefully some better luck for him tonight. Well, not a good way to start your debut. A few times changing around on the board. Another car into the 101, so Zero still with the fastest. Sweat Ridge coming second quickest. But Wheeler just came in with a 101.7, so only 0.035 of a second difference between him and Sweat Ridge. Talking to Gallen early, he was mentioning with practice he was getting in the 102 marks, and a few of the other guys were getting a lot of 101s. So the rest of the field going through to up to 9th position, heading in the 102s, and then Mersey Blue coming in with a 103, and 104s for Demon FX and Kaza Freak. Then Whacked Will in a 105, Fritz Skinner with a 108, and the same with Simo Simzel as well. That is only 7 seconds separating the field, so it's going to be very tight with almost a full grid around this track. Jump on board with a Zero so we can get an idea of the track if you're not familiar with the layout of Silverstone. So it has the back end of the track modified. So usually there is a lot more turns on after that section 2. So it's shortened a fair bit. So it's almost, I think, 2 kilometres shorter. Not sure how clear the map is. Much clearer on the broadcast than what I am seeing. And it's showing a lot of the extra track actually over the overlays. You can see it's very different from the other sections. So we're coming into the end of Sector 2. And we're coming to some very sharp bends here, a couple of hairpins. And trying to get these 2 hairpins is rather difficult, especially in these larger cars. And then it's very tight for exceeding track limits on this track. So when you're trying to push around a much larger car, needing to try and take up as much of a track position as you can, you have to be very cautious, and those ribs can put these cars into a slide quite easily. You can see it's a very quick version. So you can see on that layout of the track there, all the different cones repositioned to stop the track from going out to those other bends. Looks like Sweat Ridge just ahead, trying to get some warmth into them tyres. And there we are, we've been around for a full lap with a Zero, so thanks to a Zero. Isn't Sweat Ridge? We saw weaving about. It may have been Rooney, yes that was Rooney. So Sweat Ridge looks like he's just dove off track. 1 minute remaining of practice. Time progression for this is ×2. So as we go through 15 minutes of game time, it progresses about half an hour's game accumulated time. So the morning is getting later and track temps will start to go up. The weather conditions for qualifying, game time starts at 10 o'clock, weather's like cloud. So it'll most likely be very similar track temps as to what it is currently. We should see very similar times throughout the field, I would imagine. Race pace, I'm probably expecting about the 1 minute 4s. And then for the drivers in these series, they do get bonus 5 points for fastest lap set in a race. And there is points up for grabs for that as well, and then qualifying also gets points. So trying to get a good qualifying position is a must-have to ensure you're getting championship points to try and win this. There is a prize available for the drivers as well. Looks like Gallen's probably stopped to do a burnout. Yes, it is Gallen. If there's anyone doing donuts at the start of the track, it's always Gallen. So drivers on their last laps now. D-Train, a few drivers doing handbrakies across the line as well. After weaving, his car's looking very tidy. A lot of cars out there with a lot of scrapes and bumps. I think that's an AI driving at the moment. Possibly is. Car's going quite casually. Gallen is still going, doing burnouts. Now we have practice completed, a 101.520 being the quickest time set by a 0143. So we did end up getting 4 drivers in the 101s. It's going to be interesting to see if we can push a little bit more and see if they can shave another half a second off. It would be possible, but probably not likely until the second session of qualifying, as track temperatures and weather conditions will be much more beneficial to it. So we'll be heading into 15 minutes of qualifying now. If you are joining us for the stream and you haven't yet clicked that follow button, we appreciate it if you could hit the follow button. We are trying to climb to our milestone of 50 followers, so we should only have 4 left to go at the moment. And if you see our social media links that have come up on the stream, you can head over to our YouTube channel. All our past broadcasts get saved over to there, so you can go back through and see any previous races that we've done. So once this race is done, oh, we've just had another driver join the field. Let's see who it is. Someone had disconnected for some reason. Just saw a lag spike. That's 15 cars on the field. And then if you want to get involved in any of our racing, you can head to our Facebook page. It has all details and the link to our group, which will have all our events that are coming up. Tuesday nights, we will 7:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. We will be doing an iRacing series. So if you are on PC and have iRacing, you can jump in and join with us. Hello, Dragboy11. Thanks for joining. If you want to get involved in some of our iRacing, this is our first series that we'll be doing on iRacing. I'll be driving that as well. And if we start getting a fair few involved on those, we'll actually look at broadcasting those as well, but otherwise just broadcasting Thursday night races at this stage. Whacked Will in the green car. Oh, he's having some issues with that car at the moment. I think he's just brought that back into the pits. He has. And T-Rex already showing damage early on, only in the first couple of minutes of qualifying. I think he may have actually disconnected and rejoined as well. Possibly not. He's got some times on the boards. First times coming through, 102, 103 and a 105 by Vert Wheeler. A 0 currently quickest. Already significant marks to his car. This is on PS4. If you've got PS4 and want to get involved in our racing, you can do that. So we aren't doing this just yet for the PC. But iRacing, of course, will be on it. Okay, more times coming through. We saw a Zero take a 101 last in the practice session, so 101.5. And then already coming in with his cold lap of 102. We should see some very quick times still being consistent with these guys. Looks like Gallant doing... No, it's not Gallant. Left wheel getting some heat into those tyres, and being custom setups, they can control what tyres they'll be using. And then in the second session for tonight, there is a mandatory pit, so pit strategies will be a must to ensure that they are in and out quickly. And then it's accelerated tyre wear as well, so a set of hards quite possibly could last the 30 laps for the main race, so they could do a stop and go if that was the case. They can just pull up, they don't have to actually change tyres or make any adjustments or add fuel. Mersey Blue coming with his first time, doing well, 104s. We have 5 drivers yet to get a time on the board. In the last V8 Supercar series we saw Fritz Skinner do some very quick driving, so there'll be one to look out for in this series as well. And a big thanks to our sponsors, Lake Edge Holiday Units, for supporting us in sponsoring this series. And then there's also a prize available because of that. So we have the V8 Supercar Lake Edge Champion coffee mug. The drivers will be competing to take that home. We just saw Gallen 350 win the Ferrari series that ended last week, and he got himself the Apex eSports League Champions Cup. And he did have his heart set on it to win that from the start. That was his goal, and he did manage to do it. He wasn't too sure about how he would perform with the rest of the guys in the V8s. It wasn't his forte compared to a lot of other drivers. So it's good to see him setting some pretty good on-par times with a 102. So keep an eye out for him, especially after his very consistent driving we saw in the Ferrari series. So we'll check out the rest of the guys. Mr. D-Train in the same car as T-Rex, in car number 11. Mr. D-Train won our Bathurst Challenge. So if you've been joining us for past broadcasts, we did a 3-round Bathurst Challenge where we did 3 sessions all on the mountain under different conditions, and he came through and won the series for it. So a very good supercar driver, so we'll keep an eye out for D-Train. And a bit of variety with this series as well. So next week we head to Dubai Autodrome, and that's under lights as well, so it's a night race, so it'll be very pretty to watch. And then the driving conditions will be very different, being a lot cooler, so it'll be a bit of a challenge for the drivers. Then in round 3 we've got Sportsland Sugo, which is a very fast track with some nice hills and some very sharp turns, so it's going to be very tricky for the drivers heading off into that one. And then round 4 we have Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, which won't be too bad for these cars. It'll be pretty good as it is run as a road course for the NASCARs as well, so it'll be rather suited for it. And then for the final round, of course, we have to include Bathurst Mount Panorama. Okay, let's have a look at, so Zero's just, I think he set a 101.520 in practice, and he's just done a 101.502. So he's very on par, very consistent times, and that's scored him pole position so far. We have Sweat Ridge starting from the top so far with a 101.6. There's only a 0.152 of a second difference, so very tight time. Oh, we've just had, looks like Sweat Ridge dive off into the pits. Yes, he's brought that back in. And we saw Weaven in practice doing some very tidy, consistent driving, so not many cars that aren't showing any damage to the cars, and Weaven has been doing some very tidy, consistent driving. A very slow time on the board at the moment. Making our way back up through the field as well. So Simo Simsel, it will be his debut race tonight. He's got a 104, so it's only 3 seconds dividing the field so far, except for Weaven to get a time on the board. I'm not sure what happened with that lap to set a 145. Must have pulled over momentarily for some reason. Not sure what went on there. Trying to familiarise myself with all the cars. Usually takes a couple of rounds to get used to all the liveries for the driver, especially when we're getting almost a full field. So it's very exciting that we have got that tonight with 15. Corby a 102.735. I think that's probably just exceeded track limits. Not sure if I'm getting an up-to-date race feed or not. It usually drops out after practice session. Bit of understeer for Corby's car as he was coming in. Not sure what was going on for him. And Silver wheel in practice set a very fast time. I think we saw him get into the 102s, so he possibly pushed his car a little bit more, considering coming in qualifying as 10th position, but with a time of 103.532. That's a very quick time indeed, so it's going to be very tight with a 15 lap sprint race. With times like this, there's not going to be a lot of difference. So if there's only, so we've had Weavings improve his time. Where did he come in at? So he's coming into 9th position, so he came in from 103, so there's only 2.6 seconds dividing the field. That is very quick indeed. And he's got a lot of the drivers that have used the same liveries that they've used in previous series of the V8 Supercars with Apex eSports League. I can recognise a few drivers just by sight. Zero, still not bettering that time, but 101.5, that is very quick indeed. And the times between Sweatridge and Gallantry 50 as well, they're only 0.004 difference between the two. That is very tight. And locking that rear under brake for Sweatridge as he was heading into that corner. 2.5 minutes remain of qualifying. For current positions to change, there doesn't need to be much time shaved off your lap to easily move up towards the top of the field when there's only 3 seconds, or less than 3 seconds I should be saying. That is very tight, so 2.677 dividing them. So probably a bit of setup sharing as well. There's a lot of the drivers talking about sharing some setups, so all our drivers are very friendly and very helpful towards all other drivers, no matter what skill levels. So if you're thinking of getting involved into some league racing or just some fun racing, I highly recommend you jump over to our Facebook page and get involved with us. It'd be great to have you get involved in some of our racing. It'd be great if you are on PC and got iRacing, check out our Apex eSports League on iRacing. So our first race of the Cadillac CTS Vs starts next Tuesday. So Corby's in with a 102.697. He's really using every bit of track. He's so far out on that track, so to get a nice fast line through that bend, you need to come out and start very wide, and then you can take that corner rather quickly. And then still very easy on the throttle, so we'll bring up some speedos and just see what sort of throttle work they're doing. But to keep these cars under control through the corners, you need to be very light on the throttle and just feather it through. Oh, he's going flat foot too early. We'll put these things into a very broad slide. Oh, and that's a big slide by Corby. So that lap will be invalidated for him. I'm not getting an up-to-date race feed, so I'm not getting information for fastest laps being set by the drivers. 10 seconds remain. Kazafreak just getting across that finish line, ready to be able to get in another lap. He'll be able to get one in. So a lot of drivers already back into the field, into the pits. The drivers now on the last laps. I think at this rate, I think Azuro is probably safe with keeping pole position. As I was just saying before, the times being this tight. However, if Gallen can improve his fastest lap by that tiniest margin, it's only going to be a tenth of a second, and he could move up quite easily and take second across the line. He gets pole position. Well done, Gallen. So just scraping in front of Azuro. So Gallen 350 starting from the front. A 101.494. So that's only 0.008 difference off Azuro. So just sneaking in. Usually that's something that Corby would usually do and is known for. So well done to Gallen, stealing pole on these last few seconds. So starting from the front, Gallen 350 is our pole starter. A 01.43 starting from second position. Sweatridge in third, Rooney in fourth, Kaza in fifth, Terex in sixth, Corby in seventh, D-Train in eighth, Fritz in ninth, 10th is Weaven, Demon FX in 11th, Third Wheel in 12th, Mezzy Blue in 13th, Whacked Will in 14th, and Simo Simsel in 15th. So we only have a difference of 2.685 for the entire field, so that is very tight indeed. As you can see in the sector times, there's not much difference at all, so all 18s just about in sector 3, mostly 23 in sector 2, and 20s all aboard except for 3 times just below that in the 19s. So not much to be able to improve there to get past, so it's going to be some very fierce racing. So off we go into the race now. Drivers will have 2 minutes to adjust their race setups. So if they're running qualifying setups with lighter fuel loads and closing up of any brake ducts and grills as well, or radiator ducts, as closing those off does improve the aerodynamics on the car. However, it does heat the engine and deteriorate tyres and brakes quite quickly. But when you are just getting out and doing 5 or 6 laps to set a nice qualifying time, you can close those off. had a small dropout just before the start of the race, so it's now sinking, getting ready for race start, and off we are. We are green. Oh, delayed start by Gallen on pole. I think he still managed to keep just ahead. That looks like we've got, I think that's Corby sneaking up the side. A few cars being pushed off. It looks like Sweatridge sneaking in behind Gallen. A good start to Gallen, so he's starting to put almost a second on second position. Another 1 second just about behind with Kaza. So that was Kazafreak that we saw sneaking up along the right side off the start. So he's gained several positions already. So I think it's looking pretty clean through the field so far, besides a couple of run-offs on that first bend. Oh no, and then Azuro's just spun off. That's huge contacts. That's Azuro has been recovered. I'm not sure who's in the green car that's now moving back up. I think that's Rooney. Oh, Rooney's car is quite bad, so he's already into the pits. I'm not sure if that's for the damage. That's a bad start for Rooney. So several cars also heading off. Zero managed to stay on. So D-Train also involved in that. We don't get a good look in the pits here, so I can't see what they're actually doing, unfortunately. We have Sweatridge hot on the tail of Gallen 350. Closing that gap in very quickly. A very exciting start to the sprint race. We're on lap 2 of 15. And the rest of the field starting to close in. Weaven's catching up onto Rex. The Wheeler looking to make a move past Weaven. We saw the Wheeler doing some very quick times in the practice. Make a move. Oh, he's under the lock. He's very hot right up behind Weaven. But Weaven managing to get away a little bit quicker. Corby also closing in on Vert Wheeler. Going to keep an eye on the time gap between our race leaders at the moment. Looks like Gallen's starting to sneak away a little bit more. Vert Wheeler still right on the tail of Weaven. Not the best camera angles for this track for a lot of the spots. So hopefully we get some good passes at the right times. He ducked around. He's moving side to side, in and out of the blind spots on Weaven. Did move out of the way of that slipstream. Oh, Weaven's run wide, but he's re-entered. The Wheeler takes the opportunity, and also Corby on the inside for that tidy pass. Oh, that is very tight. Oh, a bit of rubbing. The two go off. I think Corby's run off. Oh, and that is a big hit up over the grass mound. That's possibly done some aero damage to the front and rear bar of that car. The Wheeler's just received a slowdown penalty as well. We've just had Mersey Blue pass Fritz Skinner and Azuro. Azuro's looking at making a pass on these two cars. Azuro was up to some very fast pace through practice and qualifying, and that spin out cost him. Oh, a little bit of contact, I think, as he's trying to pass Fritz. Will he be able to find a line between these two? Straight down the middle. Oh, almost rubbing elbows between the two. Oh, and that looks like Simo's just done a big spin onto the pit straight. Can he get this car around in time? Nice flip spin, recovers. He's got a bit of time, so Rooney and D-Train having to pit 20 seconds behind him at this stage. And our race leader, Gallen, now lap 5 of 15. He's put the lead out on Sweat Ridge by almost 3 seconds. A little bit of slip. And I think he's starting to catch up. I think that's D-Train he's catching up on at the moment. And D-Train, he's doing some fast pace. So his fastest, or his last lap was a 102. Just crossing the line, then a 104, and Gallen's in the 102s as well. So that could be quite good for Gallen, as when you are at the front of the race leading and there's a bit of time between you and the driver behind, you can sort of get a bit relaxed and get slightly off pace. So having a good fast driver ahead of you will potentially do him well. Back over to a 0. He did get ahead of Fritz and Mersey just earlier. So he's now closing in on Vert Wheeler. Oh, Vert Wheeler's just going for a slide. Yes, that's Vert Wheeler that has gone off. Luckily not taking damage to himself or making a collision with anyone else. It's a Demon FX. He's right in front of Vert Wheeler now. Have a look and see how much of a time penalty. So Vert Wheeler's got a 1 second time penalty, so it's just for exceeding track limits, getting a slowdown and not abiding by it. How tight the drivers are here. 1 second penalty could definitely cost a position quite easily. Only 34 seconds separating the field. We have T-Rex starting to close in on Kazza 36 Freak as well. And having the opportunity for a slipstream, he's slightly not behind Kazza's car, so not taking full advantage of getting a slip, choosing a different driving line. Quite interesting. Not sure if it's him trying to break stream to him, to the car behind, but I think that is the train that's behind him anyway. No, he is a lapped car, so it shouldn't matter. There's several drivers now with the red marks on the standing screen. That means they have received a time penalty. So you can see 1 second time penalties for those drivers. Great Ridge with a little bit of oversteer coming out of that corner. They're going heavy on the throttle in these cars around some of those bends, and those can kind of see it that the tracks aren't exactly very flat. There's a lot of undulations along this track, so these cars will bump and skip a fair bit along the track. So being very cautious where you put your foot down can definitely see the car going into a big slide, which we've seen many drivers do so far in this race. T-Rex past Kazafreak. Only just Kazza must have made an error. He's quickly pushing right up behind T-Rex to retake that position, so fighting for third. They're a fair ways behind from second place, so Sweat Ridge is 5 seconds ahead of them at this rate. And then Zero is just past Weaven. See the times that are on the board, that is the last laps. There's varying times. You can see where a couple of drivers have made errors where they've just lost a position, where their race pace was quite good, and seeing fastest laps in the 102s. I was expecting a race pace of 104. That is very quick times indeed. Vert Wheeler making a move on Mersey Blue. No, he has to pull that car up offline. So having to shave a little bit extra speed off. Needs to just get in behind Mersey Blue, make himself known. and then pick his spots, try and force an error, or just keep following that same line, see where he's going. So, oh, it looks like, not sure who's Demon Effects going past, so I think that's D-Train potentially, that's just pulled up. So he's got that car back out. Not sure what was going on for him to pull up there. And that damage would most likely be residual from going into the pits. So after the cars have had damage and head in and get that repaired, the game doesn't actually refresh the graphics on the car. It leaves all the damage there. All it does is put any missing panels back on, so wings, bonnets, etc. So lap 11 of 15, I think if Gallen doesn't make any errors, this should be his race in a bag. So 3 seconds. There was a lot of talk with the drivers as well about, I did mention about how strict this track is with track limits. So you can see a lot of slowdowns being given to the drivers, and they've just ignored it and taken that time penalty. So with how tight they are, it's probably not worth the slowdown. Taking the 1 second infringement would be much better than the amount of speed you would have to shave off to get that back. And this track isn't exactly designed for large cars like this, so trying to get these large metal machines around a very nimble track. Oh, and that was, I think that was Kazafreak, so he'd gotten back ahead of T-Rex, but he was slightly offline and heavy under braking, so that's just cost him a position. Got Mersey Blue and Demon Effects. They were just only a small amount of time between each other. That's actually just increased. So it must have been a mistake made by Demon Effects. Mersey Blue's closing in on Vert Wheel it very quickly. And he's tucking in for that slipstream. That's Demon Effects and D-Train following behind. And Simo Simsel has debuted tonight. With this race, we missed out last week for the final. Disconnected just after the qualifying session, so it's great to have him aboard. It's probably just been shown the blue flag, so he's moved off track to allow the rest of the field through. Great sportsmanship by Simo, well done. Gallen sitting around the 2.5 to 3 second lead over Sweat Ridge. I'm not getting sector time feeds up to date, so we can't compare those. But it looks like Sweat Ridge is starting to close in. Not sure if he is slightly quicker in different sectors. That's possibly what's going on here, as that margin seems to be fluctuating a fair bit. Kazafreak and T-Rex still fighting for position 3, fighting over that spot on the podium, neither giving each other a break at all. And Zero is slowly moving up through the ranks as well. Looks like he's going to be taking on Corby very shortly. Looks like Kaz's getting away on T-Rex now, so he's increased that lead by another second. And here's a Zero, so doing well until that spin at the start. Oh, and that looks like Corby almost oversteered coming out of that corner. There was almost contact with the Zero. The Zero a little bit slower through that corner, then Corby takes the inside line. Don't think it's enough to get around him at this stage. He's going to have the inside advantage here. Oh, and the Zero very quick on the outside. Can't see who, they're still side by side. Someone's going to have to give some way, otherwise this could end badly for both of them. So Corby giving that track position away to a 0 to avoid incident. We're on last lap, and Sweatridge has now closed that 3-second lead that Gullen had over him down to under 1 second. Can he pass him on the last lap? I think there could be a possibility here. That is very tight. So through sector 2, from the back straight, Gullen's given a flash of the lights. Usually does that coming up to the finish line, so whether he's getting ready to say he's claiming this victory, I think he could be safe unless he does quite a bad mistake in these last corners. Ooh, a little bit of a bad line through there. Sweatridge has got that time penalty, so it won't matter. So flash of the lights for Gullen. He's won the race. Sweatridge safe in second. Kazafreak and T-Rex coming up. Not sure if there's a time penalty for Kaza that may affect, so he takes third. T-Rex in fourth. A 0 in fifth, so a great recovery. Corby in sixth. Weaven doing some fishies across the line. Coming in seventh. Fritz coming up in 8th position. 40 seconds remain to get the last laps. And Fritz is safe, taking 8th position. Bert Wheeler in 9th. He may relinquish a position to Mersey Blue. Let's see. No, it's not enough. It was 3 seconds, so his penalty didn't affect him. Demon FX in 11th. Black Will in 12th. Rooney in 13th. Unless he can pass Whacked Will. Oh no, Whacked Will's got a penalty, so I think he would have just taken a position. And then we have the opening race for the Lake Edge V8 Supercar Championship. Gullen 350 takes the win after a pole position as well. Will he have also taken the fastest lap time? No, he hasn't. So it has been given to, by the looks of things, I think it's just Sweatridge, a 1:02.334 by the looks of things. Yes, that is the fastest time. So also on the podium we have Sweatridge 3:103 in second and Kaza 36 Freak in third. So well done to the rest of the drivers. So we will be heading off for an 8-minute break now. So drivers will have a break before we head into the second session. So it's another 15-minute qualifier and then the main race, and it is worth the big points, and that is 30 laps with a mandatory pit with weather light cloud to heavy cloud. So we'll see some interesting action going on for that final race of the first round. So stay tuned. They'll leave you with some images to check out from our sponsors, Lake Edge Holiday Units. So in the break, check them out. Don't go anywhere. Be sure to hit that follow button, and we'll be back for session 2. welcome back for session 2 of round 1 of the Lake Edge V8 Supercar Championship. And as you can see, we're in the United Kingdom for the Silverstone International. We just saw some very fast-paced driving through the first session. All drivers were very close in their times, which was very reflective throughout the race. So some good fierce battles. So we can only expect to see the same again. And then a lot of spin-outs and a few incidents. As I was mentioning before, the undulations for it. This track, getting on the throttle quite early, will put that car into a big slide. And we just saw Gallon 350 take the win for the sprint race of the opening round. And if you're joining us for the stream, make yourself known in the chat. I can see the chat. Let us know who you think's going to take pole position for the second session. We had a Zero take pole position early in the qualifying session, and then in the very last lap we saw Gallon 350 end up taking pole position, just scraping through by 0.008 of a second, so very tight indeed. And then we did see Sweat Ridge start to hone in at the back end of the race, where there was almost 3 to 6 seconds difference between him and Gallon at one stage, and then he honed that in those last few laps when we saw there was only a second difference between him and Gallon. So if there was another lap or two for that race, we could have possibly seen Sweat Ridge make a move on Gallon for sure. So over a course of 30 laps with a mandatory pit, and drivers mentioning that a lot of their tyres were basically scrubbed completely by the 15 laps. So whether they choose to go a hard slick for the race, it could very well be an option, and then make those tyres last the entire race and then just do a quick stop and go. That could be a very quick strategy. There's only a very short pit lane as well. You can see the blue arrow on the map as it's coming through there. It's a very short pit. We don't get to see a nice shot of the cars actually getting work done in the pits. The camera angles aren't as nice. Might be able to jump in and have a look at some chase views perhaps once they do go in. And Terex and Kazafrake were battling consistently for third position. Had a few good battles throughout the field. So we only had 3 seconds separating the field in qualifying last session. First times coming on the board now, cold laps. Zero already setting a 102. That was about the same pace that he was setting in the last session as well. Came through for 102 as his opening lap. Race feed, as I said, Gallon 350's just had his lap time invalidated. Game time is 1 o'clock and the weather is clear. So being around midday with clear conditions, track temperatures will be much warmer than what we saw in the first session. We could possibly see a 101 be broken potentially. Corby's opening lap at 103. So Sweat Ridge, oh, and a big broad slide. He's just brought that back into the pits. He's not happy with that setup by the go of things. Zero's come through for 101.738. He's getting in the 101.5 consistently through practice and qualifying in that first session. As you can see on our screen, this series is sponsored, so Lake Edge Holiday Units at Burrell Lake has sponsored our championship. So be sure to check them out. So that's lakeedge.com.au. They have some very, very pretty lakeside accommodation for holidaying, as you would have seen in our break screen. I want to show some lovely images of what you can expect if you are to come and visit the lovely folk down at Lake Edge Holiday Units. Canizero doesn't improve that time, so 101.688, quickest time in qualifying so far. Weaven so far with a 102.519. I think we saw Weaven in the 103s, 104 in the first session, so 102s is going to be very tight, but with how many 102s we did see on the board last session, there wasn't much time in it at all. So basically our entire middle of the field were all 102s, meaning only shaving a fraction of your time off could potentially see you jump up quite a fair few spots. So it's really good to see a very consistent level of driving throughout the field. Oh, a bit of rubbing going on with Mersey Blue and Kazafreak. Kazafreak on a very hot one. Very tight line. And he takes out that witch's hat as well. But this lap will cost Mersey Blue, unfortunately. The next lap, so 8 minutes remain of qualifying. Rooney's had a slow one, so he's had a spin and a hit by the looks of things. And Mr. D-Train needing to get a time on the board. So far, 5 seconds separating the field, except for the quite slow lap set by Rooney, but I'm guessing that will come through in a 103, 104 on his next lap. And Zero's brought that car back in. He's obviously making some more adjustments. If Gallen is to do what he did just last session and steal that pole position away from him, Zero will need to make some adjustments. The drivers will need to make sure that they're in adjusting pit strategies as well, as they will want to have a variety of different things. And D-Train ducked out of the way. I think that may be for Gallen. Yes, that was Gallen in the green car. The drivers are in a party chat amongst themselves as well, so they usually do give each other a heads up when they're on a hot one, when they're approaching other cars. So if you're out on your cold lap, usually you can give way and let them through. So very friendly drivers in our leagues. It's very good sportsmanship throughout. If you are interested in joining us, feel free to head over to our Facebook page that is listed on the stream. There is a link to our group where you can get involved in the event, so you know all the details. Oh, when he's brought that car into the pits. Oh, and Fritz has spun out. I'm not sure if he's just made contact with Kazafreak. I think that's Kazafreak that's just gone past. Yes, that was Kazafreak. So I think Corby's also in the matching blue. Yes, so he's just come out of pits by the looks of things. And if you do just want to keep up to date with results and standings, if you go to our Facebook page, you can follow our page to all the posts of results. Do go on there. We also have the Apex eSports League Android app, so you can also download it and see up-to-date results, and also find out information to be able to join in our events as well if you wish to do that. And it also has our streams and everything linked through there, so it's very handy. It's got chats as well, so you can get involved in the chats with our drivers and viewers alike. But Wheeler, some very quick pace. We saw him get a nice 102 in the first session. He moved up quite high in the field, but then pushed back slightly just because everyone else getting in that time as well. So far most of the field between 101 to 103. We've got 3 drivers in the 101s. Rooney's taken pole position with a 101.275. So that is very quick. The higher track temps definitely helping on that. Lap's probably going to cost a 0. It doesn't look like it invalidated his time, but won't be a quick lap for him. After Rooney taking that fastest time, brought that car straight back into the pits. Oh, it looks like Simo has just run off wide. Oh, he's just brought that back into the pits. And D-Train and looks like Vert Wheeler also running wide off following each other. Oh, almost contact made into Simo. I think that is Sweatridge just ahead of him as well. Both of them. Well, that's not Sweatridge, it must be Rooney. Yes, that's Rooney's car. So narrowly avoiding some contact in those bends. Rooney obviously not happy with how that car's handling all those tyre temps. And then trying to get warm into those tyres, getting that rear out onto the grass. The cars do not like going off track, especially under throttle. And the key thing for the drivers as well is to make sure they actually do familiarise themselves with the pit lane entry. As you do get to tend, a lot of drivers, when there is mandatory pits for a race, won't be aware of where the pit entry is. So then come to the race when they do finally need it, they're trying to figure out just where it is. And then since there is disqualifications potentially up for drivers speeding in the pits, they have to ensure they've shaved off enough speed to get the car under 60 kilometres an hour before they enter the pits. Otherwise they usually cop about 50-second time penalty straight away for just marginally speeding. Then if they continue at quite a high rate of speed coming in, it will be an instant DQ, so they definitely don't want that. Now it is manual pits, so once you do cross into the pit entry, they have full control of the car, so they have to find their pit crew, and then pull that car up in the correct bay. The drivers can easily get that wrong, so time can be lost in the pits. So the mandatory pit races make it very interesting. These drivers have to be on board across all aspects to ensure a victory. Has a 36 and very fast pace. For Kaza, sitting in 7th position, is only 1.2 seconds off the current fastest time, so that is not much in it at all, and that's seeing him just about halfway down the field. Trax has just moved up into 6th position. We've gotten those slower times off the boards now, so field separated by 5.3 seconds. And if you are joining us for the stream, be sure to use those sound controls down below. You can play sounds over the stream. There's various sound effects, cheers, boos, bangs, clashes, and other fun things to get involved and make the stream yours. Fritz Kenya. These times are blistering quick. Vert Wheeler currently sitting in 13th position and only 2 seconds from the leader, so there is nothing in that time. If he was to save a second off that, could see him move up into about 6th position. So easily be able to shave a second off. That is very consistent driving by all drivers. So 30 seconds remain of qualifying. Sweatridge has just had his lap time invalidated, so his last lap won't count for him. There where Gallen is, can he steal pole position like he did last time? He's moved up into 3rd, he didn't steal pole, there's still a possibility for the rest. Zero is only following behind Rooney by 0.201. Oh, and that looks like Sweatridge has just spun off in front of him there. A minute left to get final laps done. Can Zero reclaim a pole position? Not much to try and shave off. Kazafrank's just exceeded track limits, same as Corby. There's a Zero, Gallen, Vert Wheeler and Simo. Well, I think Gallen did cross the line, so that's AI driving. He just hadn't brought it back to the pits. Does he improve it? Didn't give us enough time. He did, he stole pole position on that last lap, so he shaved off just enough time, so only 0.035 of a second quicker, managing to steal that pole position away. So, which is what happened to him by Gallen in the first session, so managing to do it in the same way in the reverse, but he starts from the front of the grid. Rooney 9915 starting in 2nd, Gallen 350 in 3rd, followed by Sweatridge, Weaven, Kaza, Terex, Demon, Mr. D-Train, Fritzo, Corby, Mersey Blue, Vert Wheeler, Simo Simsel and Whacked Will. So we'll be heading over into the ready room for the drivers. Drivers needing to readjust all their car setups, make sure they reactivate their default pit strategy, as the game does tend to load a different setup on the car occasionally. So where you think it's still running the same setup you may have just been using, it can revert back to something else. And also, same as the pit strategy you may have already set in that qualifying, it does sometimes tend to go back to default. So a lot of drivers get quite frustrated finding that they've gone in to get tyres changed and end up driving off without a fresh set of tyres. So they need to make sure their setups are accurate and selected correctly. You can adjust it on the fly, but with short tracks and not much of a long straight, it's quite hard to try and stay focused with the driving and manage the in-game menu on the fly. So we had quite a good clean start. One to look out for is Kaza. So he is in 6th. So you can see him in the blue car on that right side. It's where he started, I think, in the first race, and we saw him get a very good start, and he dove up along that outside, along the pit lane wall there, and managed to reclaim a couple of positions very quickly. So we'll keep an eye out for him. And saw a Zero reclaim quite well at the start. And drivers must make sure they hit that ready button so that they do not get disqualified from the race. And this race is worth the big points. And there we are. And the camera angle is terrible. His cameraman is basically looking up at the sky. That's better. And we're away, green light, so I can't even see what's going on. That is terrible camera work going on by the game. So Rooney manages to get a nice good start over 0. Oh, and there's been an incident. I think that's Gallen. Gallen has had a spin out in front of everyone. Yes, and I think there may have been some contact with Kazafreak by the look as well. Yes, so the two have had quite a bit of a hit. I think there is some window damage. Yes, a fair bit of damage to the car by the looks of things there. But Rooney starting to get a lead over 0. So he's now increasing that gap to about 1 second. And the rest of the field flying rather quickly. He's definitely putting a bit of space over 0 quite quickly. I'm not sure. I think Azuro's managing to close that gap in. Not quite sitting right behind Rooney. They blowed off by not taking advantage of the slipstream behind Rooney's car. But Azuro seems to be quite quick through those corners. And he's going for an inside pass, not enough. And some Witch's Hat's been taken out down the back. And Mersey Blue and Whacked Wheel looks like they are contesting back there, but I think Azuro could potentially be making a move on Rooney very soon. Rooney would be feeling the pressure from seeing Azuro sitting right in that mirror. Azuro taking some different lines. I think he's going to get him. Oh, not enough. He's going to have to possibly bring that car and tuck straight back in, yes. So that line didn't have enough power to get around to shoot off and have him on the straight. We saw Azuro closing in the times around these corners. So Azuro seeming to be having that car running quite nice through the bends. Some good throttle control. You can see T-Rex and Weaven in the background, followed by Demon Effects. Also starting to catch up on these two. There's 4 seconds between second and third. Rooney starting to get away now. And we see Azuro manage to hone that in. So he catches up on that bend very quickly. To Azuro. We'll just see the difference between their lines. And I think we've just lost Sweat Ridge. Sector time come up after this bend. So Rooney gets away on the straights. There's not much between their last laps. You can see Azuro doing quite well through the corners. So I think possibly Azuro's car may have a lot more rear downforce being set to the car. See Sweat Ridge's car debris all over that pit straight. Yes, Azuro's car's quite like a rail going through the bends, where Rooney's car a little bit more flighty but quicker on the straights. And that most likely would be a lot of aero setups for the cars, so having some more downforce on the rear will hold those cars into a tighter line through the bends at the expense of some downforce on the car during the straights. And as this track doesn't really have too much in the straights, having it going quicker through the bends will be largely more beneficial in the long run. These guys are very close indeed. And they're really putting the pace over the rest of the field, so they've now put that lead from T-Rex to 5 seconds, almost 5.5 seconds. These two really pushing each other to get these cars going to some very fast pace. And if you are watching the stream, be sure to say hello. I'd love to know that you're here watching and who you think will have the victory for the main race in the opening round tonight. So we had Gallen 350 take pole position and the race win. But I don't think that's going to be the case for Gallen now. After that incident we just saw before, he's down in 13th position. And the rest of the field starting to space out a bit now. And these two are going to be hot on each other for quite a while. We're only 7 laps in. It's not quite a third of the way through. It'll be interesting to see what these guys have actually done in their car setups. So whether they are running hards as pushing these cars like they are at the moment under softs, coming up to 15 laps, I think their tyres will be fairly shredded. Just how fast they're getting away, I can only think that they would be actually running softs at this stage. Oh, Zero, I think there is almost a nudge onto that rear bar of Rooney's. Making himself known with a little rub. Zero is going to have to make sure he takes advantage of the slips. Oh, and then Rooney's run off wide. He's re-entered. Zero has just had a slate. Oh, what's going on here? Zero's just dove back across. He was on a very different line. And Zero's had a slowdown as well. So that's just cost him the good gain that he had over Rooney, but I'm sure he'll hone that back down. I have Weaven and T-Rex now starting to catch up. So they were 5 seconds behind. We're now at 4.5. So now closing that to almost 3 seconds. Weaven and T-Rex may be battling for third position very shortly. Towards the back of the field we've got Kazafreak right on the tail of Mersey Blue. We saw these two make some bumps, I think on that same bend potentially in the qualifying as well. A nice inside pass by Kazafreak with a little rub through it, locking that rear left. Both of them doing it. That's cost him some time, so Mersey Blue's looking to get around him, but he doesn't. Vert Wheeler in the background looking to dart around them as these two exchange a couple of rubs. So these three absolutely flying down pit straight into turn 1. Vert Wheeler very quick coming out. Oh, and a big slide. And then Mersey Blue has been ducked off. I'm not sure if that was caused by contact between the two. They were side by side through that bend. That may be a penalty involved in that. That will have to be looked at for stewarding in the replays tomorrow. If you want to see just what is the outcomes of any incidents, if you head to our Facebook page and follow it, all the results get posted up from the races and any incident reports after they've been reviewed and penalties given out. And you can see just how drivers are going in the championship. There's 60 points up for grabs for the win in this race, and they're already catching up, only lap 10. And they're looking at lapping the back markers now, so they are catching up on Whacked Wheel at the moment. I think Whacked Wheel is also in that green car, same as Gallen. Whacked Wheel much further behind. Gallen showing a fair bit of damage. I'm not sure if he's brought that car into the pits yet though. Oh, Zero nudges Rooney again. Would be good if we could see mirror views. No, we don't get to see a mirror view, unfortunately. So last time we saw Zero hone down Rooney quite quickly. Oh, he's going to go for an inside pass. It's not the best corner to try and do that. Almost a hairpin. And then getting on throttle over that curve will put the car into a big spin. Oh, a nice line through there. Oh, brake checked by Rooney. Or is Rooney doing a slowdown? Not sure if that was a brake check or not. That quite possibly could have been. No, so Rooney was slowing down, so he's just had a red number come up for not abiding. So Zero's already got 2 second time penalty. Rooney's in 1 second. That big cut where we saw a Zero quite heavy coming in. Oh, and he's coming between Whacked Will and Simo Simsel. They've moved over nicely to allow these guys through. Good move there. Moving off to the side. Oh, Rooney goes off wide. It doesn't cost him too much, I don't think. So coming up to halfway through, we can expect to start seeing the cars head into the pits. The Zero's getting away on Rooney now. And the rest of the field looking at needing to get past the rest of the back markers. Weaving catching up to Corby. There's a second difference between these two. Over to T-Rex in third, so Simo Simsel just ahead of him. And looks like Whack-Will as well. Simo Simsel moves out of the way, being shown the blue flag for T-Rex. Oh, and Simo's just gone for a spin. He brings that back in. The Whacked Will now would be showing the blue flag. T-Rex will need to try and get past cleanly and quickly so he doesn't lose any time, as he was closing that gap on Rooney and a Zero quite quickly. So a nice inside pass. Slightly puts him off the line, but gets through it relatively quick. But didn't lose too much time. The rest of the field really starting to space out. That's why we've got some time between some battles. So Corby's currently sitting in 4th position. Weaving trying to close that gap on him. A little bit of a gap between Weaving and Fritz Iskenya. And I think that is Whacked Will. No, maybe Gallen just in between there. Yes, that's Gallen, so being lapped at this stage. Demon FX currently in 7th position. Kaza Freak sitting in 8th position, 30 seconds behind the leader. And Mersey Blue, so seeing Mersey Blue run off track after that pass by Kaza Freak with a bit of a rub. Not sure if that actually put the car into a spin or if he was just off on a bad line and had nowhere to turn in that caused the spin. That will be reviewed on the replay. Vert Wheeler currently in 10th position, last lap of 105. So a pretty good time, keeping out on par with the race speed at the moment. So it's around the 104, 105 mark. Gallen 350 sitting in 11th position. Mr. D-Train also showing some damage as well. And we have lost Sweatridge. We saw that significant damage and debris on pit straight as we were in the car with Zero. So Weaving's heading in for the first pits. Oh, D-Train going off wide. A lot of understeer causing him to go off. Simsel in third. Sorry, in 13th, not third position. Whacked Wheel currently back to the field in 14th position. Rooney's closing that gap again on a 0. If these two keep at this same pace with the time penalties they got on each other, they will need to try and further the gap over each other, otherwise they could... And here they are, they're going into the pits. Oh, there's a bump. That could have almost pushed a 0 and increased his speed, so a time penalty could have been given to him. No, that's fine. So, very fierce racing when they're still contesting in the pits. So, opportunity for T-Rex to now take the lead of the race. Now to see just how long it takes to get in the pits. It'd be nice to see what they are actually doing. So we're going to have to go to chase view, see what's going. Oh, Sims are having to just quickly hit the brakes just to allow a 0 out of the pits. Rooney is still in the pits. It's a much longer pit stop, so I'm not sure what it was that he was doing that's caused that extra time. So let's see him drop back to 6, whether T-Rex, Fritz, Demon and Kaza will need to pit, so he will be able to easily recover those positions quite quickly. And Kaza Freak honing in on Demon effects. Oh, just gets past Simo, so he would have been shown the blue flag. So he's closing on Demon effects. There's less than a second between the two. A bit slower through those lines. We'll see him take advantage of the slipstream here, flying up pit straight. The Demon slightly running wide. Almost heavy under brakes, looking at making an inside move, but wasn't enough pace to be able to get through cleanly, so he had to get on those brakes a lot harder, locking that wheel up. And he'll slingshot around him along this straight. Oh, not quite enough time. Should be enough to dart round now if he's going to do it. Here he goes. Onto the inside line. This is where we saw him and Mersey Blue have a spill before. And he manages to get around. That was a very nice pass indeed. Under heavy braking yet again. So it looks like those tyres locking up into the bends. So Trex now head into the pits. 0 reclaims the lead. Kaza now moves into third. It'll see him move up into second, but he does need to pit. Demon Effects now moves into third position. But he is still also required to pit, so it's a lap 18. Drivers mentioning on the softs, the tyres were pretty much scrubbed out at this stage. So if they are running soft, these cars are going to be quite slippery. And I think that's Gallen in car number 10 behind him. And he is a lapped car. Having a look to Gallen's last lap of 105.801 and 0 is a 105.28 through. So the back marker giving the race leader a bit of pressure from behind. Gallen could have probably still been up towards the front of the field with the rest of them if it wasn't for that spill early on in the race. That has cost him, but he has moved up into 10th position, so he's recovered a bit of ground. And this race, oh no, that is a very lucky recovery for a 0. So Gallen making contact. A 0 would have been rather angry about that. A lapped car looking at making a pass and making contact. Will we see Kazafreak head into the pits? Trying to gauge just where pit entry is. We've had Chari Roof try and join the session. He was meant to race with us tonight. He wasn't able to make the second session. Midway through the first race, he came online. No, he's not going to the pits. So we could have potentially had a full grid. Rooney honing in on Kazafreak. And Rooney has pitted, so he doesn't need to try and make a risky move on Kazafreak, unless he has not noticed that Kaza has not pitted. If he is thinking that Kaza has actually pitted, he will be seeing that he needs to try and make a move. Or at this stage, he can just sort of follow along nice and safe. Oh, but he's done a nice inside pass. Okay, so they're probably talking. So Kaz is ending up into the pits now. Rooney reclaims back into second position, but he is 4.5 seconds behind the race leader. So Zero's looking pretty safe out there at the moment with only 9 laps remaining. It did almost cost him just before on that section of track just there that we've gone through where Gallen made contact with a Zero. Not sure if I don't think he would have taken much damage, if anything at all. The blue flag would be shown to Gallen at this stage. You can see Rooney coming up behind Gallen. He needs to get around him. Gallen is doing some pretty good pace at the moment, so he's going to be difficult to try and get past. So that is the pit entry just on that section of track there. So I'll bring it up so we can see the rest. Yeah, so coming just out of sector 2 is pit lane entry. So Gallen allowing Rooney through on the straight. Nice decision. There's probably some discussion in the chat about letting him through. So Trek's now in the pits. And Rooney very quickly catching up to a Zero. Oh, nice caracal as the flame shoots out on that downshift by Rooney. No worries, Sweaty. We saw all the debris over pit straight. Saw bonnets and everything scattered everywhere. And it's no good that if your shifters break too, that's definitely going to make things harder. And Zero's back in the pits again. Perhaps when he went in the pits first off, they did not have, may have not changed his tyres. As I was mentioning before, if you don't have your pit strategy set up correctly, you could potentially go in and drive off with tyres not changed. So it looks like he's had a tyre change now. So that's cost him the lead of the race. The Rooney now takes the lead of the race, and then there's 7 seconds behind him and Corby. I think Corby has pit. No, Weaven has. He's in third position. Zero has re-entered the track, still manages to be in fourth position, so he definitely can still have a shot at trying to climb back up and having a shot at the podium. Yeah, it'd be good to see for next round, and it's under lights next week at Dubai, so it's going to be a good fun race. So, fair bit of distance starting to happen throughout the field. Kaz's only a couple of seconds behind a 0 at this stage. And he does have to get past, I think that is D-Train just ahead of him. Yes, that's D-Train, so he would be showing the blue flag at the moment. A fair few time penalties on the board. So he's got a little bit to try and get behind. D-Train's really keeping pace with a 0 at this stage. So while there's no battles for position, ooh, a 0 under brakes and then spins out. He locked that up with D-Train making contact. That's costly for a 0. The D-Train had nowhere to go after a 0 locked that car up. We'll bring up the timing. It says a few penalties on the board. Terex copying a 10-second time penalty, also whacked wheels, so that would be for just slightly exceeding speed limits in the pit lane. Otherwise, there's 2-second and 1-second time penalties given to Rooney and a 0. That could be costly for a 0, but he also has 10-second time penalty for Fritz, I think it was. No, Fritz, yes, Fritz is on a 10-second time penalty. So if a 0 was to finish just behind Fritz, he would reclaim that position over him by way of time penalty. Hit the wrong button then. Fritz Skinner, almost going into a slide just ahead of a 0. Zero's had a few knocks, so he was hit by a back marker before, so Gallen ended up giving him a nudge and a bit of a spin. He didn't spin out completely, but there was a slide. There, a 0 not having a whole lot of luck in this race after some very good driving at the start between him and Rooney. We have Corby, I think that's Whacked Wheel just ahead of him. I think, yes, that would be Whacked Wheel's car, so got on the brakes and moved aside for him, well done. Corby's got 7 seconds to try and get ahead and catch up to Rooney, so at this stage I think Rooney's probably going to be doing quite well. Not sure if Corby are bound to catch him over 4 seconds. They're very on par with times. So with only 0.8 of a second difference with 4 laps remaining, it's not going to be enough in that margin to catch him and contest for a victory. So far, we're even 12 seconds behind. Sorry, 8 seconds behind Corby. He has another 14 seconds between him and Kazafreak, so should be quite safe in that position. So Fritz Skinner starting to close in on Kazafreak. Mersey Blue and Terex also contesting for position 8. Gallen's just been passed by Mersey Blue. So these three got 4 cars, all very tight indeed. I think that is Weaven behind as well. So it looks like, yes, he's catching up to these guys. So third position is lapping, as it looks like, 9th, 8th and 7th. So that is some very quick pace by our race leaders. They're going to have to try and get through these guys quite quickly and cleanly. However, they have some very good race pace themselves, so it's going to make it very difficult for them to get past. Weaven's gotten around Gallen. Ooh, a bit of a rub. Gallen nudges Weaven on the way past. That's what is making it very hard. Oh, and the Gallen's spun out and taken some big damages. Can probably just battle that car through for the last few laps, I would assume, unless it's incredibly difficult to try and control. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of a lock-up. That could be damage from before. Fritz and Kaza are now contesting for position 4. Fritz having an advantage, catching up behind Kaza at this stage. Kaza seems to be a little bit off pace. Not sure if there's something going on with his car, or if he's conserving fuel. We'll have a look at things. He should have enough fuel to get the car around. 10 litres. And now race leader well ahead, so lap 29 unless something goes drastically wrong for Rooney. I think we can be sure that he has claimed victory, and here he's now lapping a 0, I think. Yes, that would be a 0. Cash now lets him through. So just earlier these two were fighting side by side for many laps, and now unfortunately being lapped. So Rooney doing very well on the final lap. You can take it easy as it's about 8 seconds between him and Corby, plus a lot of back markers in between. And he's midway through sector 2, so he's on the back straight. A brilliant drive by Rooney. And then talking about the battle between Rooney and Azuro, we saw Rooney nudge Azuro at the entrance to pit lane as they're coming in, so they're fighting tooth and nail throughout the track, even in the pits. Here he comes onto pit straight. Final lap. He takes the win. Race is complete. There's now 70 seconds for drivers to finish the last laps. So we have our victor for the main race in the opening round of the Lake Edge V8 Supercars, and that's Rooney. On the podium is Corby 387 in second. Weaven pretty safe to take third position on the podium. So it crosses the line. Skinner in fourth. He does have a big time penalty, so he's got 11 seconds. So Kaza Freak is only 1 second behind, so he'll reclaim this position. So Kaza Freak moves up into fourth. Fritz Skinner moves into fifth position by way of time penalties. Zero will come up pretty safely in sixth. Ten seconds left. I don't think we'll get to see him get across the line. And there we have it. Round 1 concluded of the Lake Edge V8 Supercar Championship. And then we have Rooney 9915 taking the victory in the first race. Also on the podium is Corby 387 in second position and Weaven 777 in third. Also finishing in fourth is Kaza Freak, followed by Fritz in fifth, Azuro in sixth, Mersey Blue in seventh, Bert Wheeler in eighth, Terex in ninth, D-Train in 10th, Gallon in 11th, Whacked Wheel in 12th, 13th in Simo, Demon FX in 14th, and we did see Sweat Ridge as he just jumped in the chat and told us that he had a severely damaged car and his shifter broke, so he had to retire out of the race. So unfortunate losing Sweat in the race. So that was some very exciting racing. There's a few incidents that are going to have to be reviewed, so be sure to hit that follow button and be sure to keep up to date with our streams. And then if you head to our Facebook page, you can actually check out what is going on for the incident reports. We'll post up the details there as long as with the results as well. So that's round 1 concluded. So to the same time next week, so 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, the stream will start, and we are at Dubai Autodrome International, and the main race is under lights. So a night race will see some very different performance of the cars, and it is quite nice to watch on that track at night. It's probably the nicest track under night conditions to do in this game. So be sure to hit that follow button, head over to our YouTube channel, check out our previous broadcasts there as well, and hopefully we can catch you for next week's race on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Thanks for joining us.